we're gonna get to our main topic, which is James Blake and speaking about music streaming and the value of music. So let's just get into it and see what he had to say about it. We're gonna watch a clip from Anthony Fantano of the Needle Drop, where he also kind of discusses James Blake's recent comments.
Stage right, the second part of this discourse, a tirade that one James Blake went on over Twitter. We will put a lot of these tweets on the screen right now.
Here we go. Something I keep saying is if you're lucky enough to go viral, just use Exposed to generate income some other way. Musicians should be able to generate income via their music. Do you want good music or do you want what you paid for? If we want quality music, somebody's going to have to pay for it. Streaming services don't properly. Labels want a bigger cut than ever and just sit and wait for you to go viral. TikTok doesn't pay properly, and touring is getting prohibitively expensive for most artists. And by the way, since it's cheaper to produce fast synthetic music to drop on streaming every week to capitalize on the strengths of the model, watch how the model is preparing you for AI generated music that pays musicians nothing at all. Very valid concerns all across the board. I'm right there with you. Let's keep
now,
this going.
But to sum them up efficiently, James pretty much went at all of these platforms that music fans access their favorite music through and talked about streaming platforms essentially putting little to no money in artists' pockets. And then on top of that, platforms like TikTok.
Here we go. It's worth noting that this is just an example I used in a post talking about the wider effect of TikTok on music. Just seeing this part makes it seem navel gazing, but I'm speaking on a thing that's affecting artists all over the world. And he is responding to this tweet here. James Blake on the impact of TikTok on the music industry. Remember when my Godspeed cover went viral? Neither me nor Frank Ocean ever made a cent because it was an original sound in every video. Most people didn't even know it was me because my name didn't show up. Next time your fave goes viral, remember they aren't making shit off of that. These are facts. These are very, very big concerns for artists of all levels across the board when it comes to streaming and social media, especially TikTok, considering it's quickly become the biggest platform for music discovery and just music being played and used in videos, which back in the day would have had to have been licensed every single time. But, which we spoke about on our last Let's Try stream, people are having beef with that. Even labels are having beef with TikTok and their payouts and the way that they use and license this popular music, because they came back to these labels, I believe it was Universal Music, with a lower offer than what they had originally. So they're wanting to pay less for music that's being played and used in videos and basically, which is essentially products for TikTok on a even larger scale, 10 times what it was when they first made the contract. They want to pay less for that. Some very serious issues going on in music right now, and the future's not looking that
breaking
bright.
Down the level of attention paid to music broadly, because now everything is getting shortened and kind of fit into bite-sized chunks, and we're not actually appreciating songcraft and lengthier pieces and dense, lush, amazing production now.
So one point which he might get to here before I forget, the one point I really, really wanted to talk about was his original tweet where he was saying people are just telling these artists, all you need to do is go viral with the song on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, wherever, on social media, and go viral with that, and then capitalize on that virality and turn that into income in a wholly different, in a completely different realm and medium. Maybe you turn that into a sponsorship. Maybe you turn that into a fashion line. Maybe you turn that into makeup. Who knows? Who cares? But just capitalize on that virality and use it to make money in a completely different business than you're in. That's fucking crazy. The fact that these artists nowadays, and I've spoken to a lot because we do a lot of interviews, and I've spoken to a lot of like indie artists and like mid-level artists who are literally the ones that grind out a living with music by touring, by just doing everything you can, just grinding it out. And now they have to worry about a whole different business instead of just focusing on music, focusing on the craft, producing good music, producing good content that people like, that people love, that people flock to, that originally you would have gotten at least paid for in some form. Now you have to do all of that and then go spin off a whole nother side business for yourself just so you can make money and survive. But keep putting out music that will hopefully go viral. But now once you get that viral, don't worry about the music anymore. Go sell some shirts. Go sell some sponsorships. Like, what are we doing? Is this the level that music industry has become? Industry? If this is where it's become, the industry is dead. It's fucking dead.
This is the current state of the music industry. It is very real. And this and the topic I was just discussing in the video are very much connected. We can't sit here and be surprised at the number of people who are rich and privileged succeeding in the music industry today, where your average person, even if they are talented, even if they do have good song ideas, even if they have the potential to be the greatest musical artist the world has ever known, they can't afford to fund an entire 20, 30 state tour that makes no money and that they lose money on. They can't afford to spend all.
Nope. And the fact is, even when your song goes viral, which he also spoke about, the way in which it goes viral on TikTok and Instagram, it does not give proper attribution to the artist. People know the sound and people know the song. But if they hear it, oh, they will say, oh, that's that TikTok sound. They won't say, oh, that's James Blake. Oh, that's such and such. They're going to say, oh, that's that TikTok sound. And then how can you possibly turn that into ticket sales, tour money, when people don't even associate your song and your music to you as an artist? So why would they search you out to see you live when at the end of the day, all you are to them is a potential TikTok sound? That's fucked. Like, you get boiled down to how regular people or non-artists can use you in their reels, in their TikToks, and that's it. And that's fucked.
All of their free time just hawking and promoting and pushing and linking over and over and over all the stuff they've made on social media. There's a squeeze for money. There's a squeeze for time that artists at every level of the industry are feeling, even somebody as successful as James here. If a guy like James is feeling the pinch, who's been in the music industry for as long as he has, and also, has a dad who was a songwriter and a producer too, that's got to help. If this guy feels like he's being slighted by this system, imagine how it feels for anybody starting out with zero any.
I can tell you from my conversations how it feels. It feels almost fucking hopeless. But their love for music and their love for the medium and their love for creating continues to drive them. But it's fucked that it's this hard to make a living from it.
So I guess let me say what I think we can do from here. One, don't be outwardly angry or hateful toward artists who, maybe come from a place of privilege just simply based on that background. Again, they're not the problem. They're a symptom.
But you don't understand. Like, people get mad at like these big artists for expressing this and having this frustration with the system and the industry, but y'all don't understand, like, they're struggling almost just as much as everybody, because a lot of them are signed to like these giant labels who have these contracts, which we spoke about before, that are objectively predatory and take advantage of their outright power position in the industry, where they're not getting paid shit. And then what they are getting paid is getting split once again because of streaming, because of social media platforms, because of all these different places that their music could be used and be shown up. But if you don't have your music on, and people will say, yeah, just don't have your music there. Don't have your music on the platforms. While that is nice in theory, if you don't have your music on Spotify or TikTok, the chances of you being being heard or discovered or people finding your music are almost fucking zero, because at this point those platforms have such a monopoly on music discovery and streaming that it's like you don't exist if you're not on there. You literally don't exist.
Would be more artists of average means either succeeding before them or succeeding around them if they just had the capacity to do so in a music industry that paid and supported them fairly. Also, let me just say how weirdly parasocial it is to presume any number of things about an artist just based on who their parents are and how much money they make, because even with those factors, so many different family dynamics could be at play. Next, stop acting like music is free and that.
Here's a tweet from him. He went on a full-on tweet storm. Their brainwashing worked, and now people think music is free. While I agree with him 1000%, this happened way before TikTok. This happened way before Spotify. This happened way before streaming. This happened back in the early 2000s with LimeWire and BearShare. The moment that you could download any album you wanted at the click of a button. Now, you might have got like 100 viruses, especially around like LimeWire or BearShare, and I don't know how many people download it. I know thousands upon thousands of people download a song, and then come to find out it was secretly a Soulja Boy song. one of the most creative marketing things that Soulja Boy ever did, and why he is such an innovator in this whole kind of modern era of music in general. But I digress. That's when it started. That's when music became free. When people found out that I did not have to go into a record store and spend $10, $12, $13 on a CD to listen to my favorite artist or an artist that has a smash hit out, I can just download it for free from somebody else. And once that happened, once that bottle got opened, once that genie came out, there was no shot you were getting it back in there. So while I agree that people have been brainwashed and think music is free, or I don't even say they're brainwashed, people just don't give a F that music is free and don't care to actually spend money on music these days and don't value it like they probably should or used to back in the day. It didn't happen with TikTok. It didn't happen with Spotify. It didn't happen with music, Apple Music. This shit happened with torrenting, LimeWire, BearShare, and the internet. Some 24, 25 years now. So once that happened, there was no going back.
Artists are just really lucky to be able to make music for a living that they're barely actually making. Artists are making music because they're passionate to do so, because they're great at it and they're hoping to do it for a job. They're not doing it just as like a favor to you. So when you can, please directly support them and their efforts by buying their merch, buying their records, or going and supporting them on a tour or something. And lastly, but most importantly, please get rid of these nasty and toxic perceptions that artists don't deserve more money and support from the industry they're operating within. Stop responding to them with jealousy and hate whenever they are calling out things like how crappy the pay is from streaming services, because it's that very crappy pay that's preventing people who are smaller than them economically and status-wise too from starting out and succeeding from nothing. When you see artists calling out these streaming platforms or doing something like getting behind unionization efforts, for example, support that, get behind that, and get loud about it. If the biggest artists in the industry today got together and, did a boycott of music releases from their labels or prevented their stuff from going on streaming platforms, a lot of what's happening today could be completely flipped on its head. I mean, look at the recent accomplishments that were made by the Screen Actors Guild and the Writers Guild. While obviously the agreements they ultimately came to were not perfect, and there's still a lot of room for improvement, those groups of workers have way more leverage in their industry than musicians broadly do right now, where even the biggest artists are routinely at the mercy of their labels and streaming platforms. As it just so happens, Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib just introduced legislation that would pay musicians more through the streaming services, which is obviously not a silver bullet solution to this problem, but a vast improvement over the current state of things. And given that a lot of you guys are music fans who want musicians to do better, if not musicians yourselves, you might actually want to get behind this legislation passing and call your senators, call your congresspeople, because Lord knows that if you stay silent and do nothing, the labels are going to lobby against this thing, and it'll be totally buried in the dirt. Make some noise. Push for something that could improve things. Let me know what you guys.
He's got some good points. Melonhead has some good points and some good suggestions and ideas. While I agree with, I think there are some other ways you can go. I didn't know about this repeatedly bill that is being proposed, and I think, it sounds good on paper, having a union, having, rights as a collective, because it's literally the only way as individuals that you will ever be able to compete with these massive corporations and labels. And while I don't see it passing anytime soon, or if at all, because I don't really see enough politicians flipping on their corporate overlords to pass this, and I also find it very hard that you'll be able to get all these musicians and songwriters and producers to agree on a union and come together and do like revenue sharing and all these other things that will unfortunately punish or affect some of the biggest acts out there. And I have a hard time seeing that happening, but it's possible. And while it is adjacent to what the film industry has and has done, I don't think it's quite equivalent, because in the film industry there are only so many screenwriters, there are only so many editors and whatnot, and that's such a collaborative field. You cannot make a film on your own. That you need these people. Whereas music, you can make on your own, and you can just find a random person in their bedroom that can produce a beat or write a song or whatever. There are a lot more alternatives to do where they can scurry around said union. But it is a solid idea, at least a starting point to maybe get to something more realistic. I don't think a union is realistic in music at all, but crazier things have happened. But with that said, from what I've experienced and what I've talked with artists and just my general observations about the music industry, considering we cover all types of things in culture, especially music, and we're very adjacent to that field, is the ones that I've seen that have managed to handle this turn in the music industry the best are honestly the ones that didn't sell out, that didn't approach these big labels, that didn't do anything to get signed to these big labels, that handled a lot of things on their own, that spent the time and the money and the effort to learn the ins and outs of running the business side of things in music, which I just think is a necessity these days. If you don't know how the music industry works, how the business of the music industry works, you're setting yourself up for failure, and you're setting yourself up to be the absolute at the mercy of all these major labels and platforms and corporations. So if you don't take the time to learn the music industry and how the businesses actually run and find ways where you can actually handle certain aspects on your own, good luck to you. Good luck to you. And the ones that I've seen be the most successful, like a Larry June or Brent Faiyaz or Russ or any of those other acts that maybe aren't the biggest artists in their field or in the world, but have a very, very strong and committed fan base and following, and they do things specifically for that fan base and following. They cater to them. They don't cater to just the masses and look for that kind of mass virality. They stick to the people that have stuck with them, and it pays off because they stay with them through thick and thin, and they buy music, they buy merch, they buy tickets, they buy physical goods, and they also promote you. Like, they push you to their friends because they are true fans of your music. It's a conundrum and a dilemma that a lot of these artists are going through in hip hop these days, with how easy it is to just have a hit song or a buzzing song or some viral moment, but it isn't translating to a fan base because they're not connecting to the actual music or the artist They're just enjoying a hot at the moment song or viral moment. If you build that strong core fan base by actually producing the music that your fans like and want, and hammer it over and over again and deliver them goods and deliver something of value to them, it's going to come back to you tenfold. I've seen it. There's many examples of it. But people nowadays kind of skip that whole process and just want the instant fame, the mass appeal, the massive crowds. But if you start with that core fan base, they will carry you throughout your career, and you won't have to worry about what streaming's paying you, or what these labels cuts are, or what these social or what these platforms like TikTok are paying you, because you will have fans that will go out and support you in any other way. And honestly, that's the only way I can see it working. And it's the only way you will ever be able to kill off these labels is if you start showing them that you can do it on your own and build your own. But yeah, that's my thoughts for this topic and James Blake and his whole kind of rant on streaming and social media platforms and just labels and just the music industry in general. I agree with many of his points, and I think it's a very dire time for music industry. It's in desperate need of some massive changes across the board, and you know, and while things can look bleak, you know, you gotta have faith. You gotta believe that things will get better, things will be figured out, and you know, hopefully the power will return to the artists, because with internet, that's one great thing about the internet and social media, is that you do have the power to kind of control your own destiny much more than you could in the past. But on the flip side, it also means that you are competing with 100 times the amount of artists that you would have been competing with back in the day. But that's just some of the trade that you got to deal with. And yeah, I think he's got some great points. I think Bella had some great points, and I think it's a topic of conversation that's been going on since the inception of the music industry, and it's one that's only going to continue to go on for the foreseeable future. But hopefully, you know, his kind of attention or bringing attention to this topic and this light will shed light on this topic to the masses and like really kind of create meaningful discussion and movement towards a more equitable kind of future in the music industry, as one can hope.